Dad, you can't just run off like that.
You tried to have me declared incompetent.
That's not true.
You already stole from your mother.
My daughter Ashley pulled her Mercedes into the parking lot of Serenity Springs Wellness Spa on a Tuesday morning in late September, turned off the engine, and looked at me with that smile she'd been using since she was 16, the one that said she wanted something but was pretending she didn't, and announced, "I thought we could use some quality time together, Dad. Just you and me, a relaxing day to decompress and reconnect." And I sat there in the passenger seat with my seatbelt still on, thinking about how Ashley hadn't voluntarily spent time with me since her mother's funeral 18 months ago. How she'd been too busy with her corporate law practice and her husband Brandon and their house in Medina to visit her widowed father living alone in the Ballard house where she'd grown up. And now suddenly she wanted a spa day, and the wrongness of it sat in my gut like a stone, even though I couldn't articulate why. But I smiled back and said, "That sounds nice, sweetheart." Because what else do you say when your only child finally reaches out after a year and a half of barely returning your phone calls? My name is Robert Thatcher. I'm 67 years old, and this is the story of how my daughter tried to have me declared incompetent so she could steal everything my wife Margaret and I had built over 43 years of marriage, and how a wellness spa receptionist's warning sent me on a hunt through my late wife's files that uncovered a conspiracy so calculated it made me understand that the little girl I'd raised had become someone I no longer recognized, and how I made her pay for every lie, every manipulation, and every moment she'd planned to destroy me. Let me back up 6 months to when this nightmare really began, because you need to understand the context to see how I ended up in that parking lot with warning bells going off in my head. Margaret died in March after a brutal 8-month battle with pancreatic cancer that hollowed her out from the inside and left me watching helplessly as the woman I'd loved since college withered into someone I barely recognized. The last month was the worst. Hospice care in our home, morphine drips, moments of lucidity getting rarer and farther between. Ashley had visited exactly twice during those 8 months. Once right after the diagnosis, where she'd stayed for 2 hours and spent most of it on her phone dealing with work emergencies. Once 3 weeks before Margaret died, where she'd looked at her mother hooked up to oxygen and pain medication and said she couldn't handle seeing her like that, then left after 30 minutes. I'd been devastated by Ashley's absence, but not entirely surprised. She'd always been closer to Margaret than to me, or so I'd thought. As she got older and more successful, Harvard Law, prestigious firm, marriage to Brandon, whose family owned commercial real estate throughout Seattle, she'd become increasingly distant from both of us. The last real conversation I'd had with Ashley where she seemed like my daughter, rather than a stranger, was probably 5 years ago. Margaret's passing was both a relief and an agony. Relief because she was no longer suffering. Agony because I was suddenly alone in a house full of memories with no one to share them with. I'd retired 2 years earlier from my career as a civil engineer, thinking Margaret and I would travel and enjoy our golden years. Instead, I'd spent those years caring for my dying wife and now faced decades alone. Ashley had handled the funeral arrangements with cold efficiency. She'd hired a funeral home, organized the service, contacted relatives, but there was something performative about it all, like she was going through motions rather than grieving. At the funeral, she'd cried prettily for the cameras. Yes, there were cameras. Her law firm sent a photographer to document the tragedy. But the moment people stopped looking, her face went blank. The first incident happened 3 weeks after the funeral. Ashley and Brandon came to the house for dinner, something they'd never done voluntarily in the 5 years they'd been married. Ashley brought an expensive bottle of wine, and Brandon brought conversation about real estate markets and investment opportunities. Halfway through dinner, Ashley said casually, "Dad, have you thought about what you're going to do with the house?" "Do with it? I'm living in it." "I know, but it's a lot of house for one person. 5 bedrooms, big yard, you're 67. Maintaining this place alone seems overwhelming." "I've been maintaining it just fine." "Have you? I noticed the gutters need cleaning. The paint on the back deck is peeling. The lawn looks patchy." "I've been busy dealing with your mother's estate and grieving. Forgive me if yard work hasn't been my priority." "I'm not criticizing," Ashley said in that lawyer voice she used when she was absolutely criticizing. "I'm just pointing out that this house requires upkeep you might not be capable of providing at your age." "At my age? I'm 67, not 90. "Dad, you're a senior citizen. There's no shame in admitting you need help or that downsizing makes sense." "I don't need to downsize. This is my home. Your mother and I bought it 40 years ago. We raised you here. I'm not selling it." Brandon jumped in then. "Robert, from a financial perspective, downsizing could be very smart. This house is probably worth close to $1 million given the Ballard market. You could sell it, buy a nice condo for $300,000 or $400,000, and have significant liquid assets to fund your retirement." "My retirement is funded. Margaret and I saved. We planned." But having additional liquidity gives you options, Brandon continued. What if you need assisted living someday, or memory care? Those facilities are expensive. I'm not going into memory care. My mind is fine. Of course it is, Ashley said quickly. Brandon's just thinking ahead. We want to make sure you're taken care of. The conversation had made me uncomfortable in ways I couldn't articulate. Why were they pushing so hard for me to sell the house? Why were they bringing up assisted living and memory care when I was healthy and independent? I'd dismissed it as clumsy concern. Looking back now, I can see it was the first move in a game I didn't know I was playing. The second incident happened a month later. I'd been at my doctor's office for a routine checkup. Dr. Patricia Walsh had been my physician for 15 years. The appointment was standard. Pressure, cholesterol, general health review. Everything was fine. Good, even, for a man my age. 2 days after the appointment, Ashley called. Dad, Dr. Walsh's office called me. They said you missed a follow-up appointment. I didn't have a follow-up appointment. They said you did. They said you were supposed to come back to discuss some concerning test results. Ashley, I was just there. Everything was fine. Dr. Walsh said I'm healthy. That's not what her office told me. Why would her office be calling you anyway? I'm not incapacitated. Medical information should come to me. I'm listed as your emergency contact, remember? After Mom died, you updated your paperwork. That was true. I'd updated forms at the doctor's office, the bank, various places listing Ashley as my emergency contact because she was my only family. But emergency contact didn't mean she should be getting calls about routine appointments. I'll call Dr. Walsh's office and straighten this out, I'd said. I already did. I told them you'd come in next week for the follow-up. Ashley, I don't need a follow-up. I'm fine. Dad, please just go. For my peace of mind. I worry about you being alone. If the doctor's office thinks you need to come back, you should go. I'd gone to placate her. Dr. Walsh had been confused. Robert, I don't know why my office called your daughter. You don't have any follow-up scheduled. It's perfect. I told you that during your visit. That's what I thought. Did your daughter specifically say someone from my office called her? Yes. That's odd. Let me check with the front desk. She'd checked. No one from the office had called Ashley. Either Ashley had lied about receiving a call, or someone claiming to be from the office had called her. Either option was troubling. I'd confronted Ashley about it gently. Sweetie, Dr. Walsh says no one from her office called you. That's impossible. I have the voicemail. I'll forward it to you. She'd never forwarded it. When I'd asked again, she'd said she must have deleted it accidentally. Looking back, I can see the pattern. Ashley was building a narrative that I was declining, forgetting appointments, unable to maintain my home, potentially developing cognitive issues. She was creating a paper trail, however fabricated, to support what she was planning. But I didn't see it then. I just thought my daughter was being overprotective and clumsy about it. The incidents escalated over the next few months. Ashley started calling more frequently, asking pointed questions about my daily routine, whether I was remembering to take my vitamins, whether I'd paid the utility bills on time, whether I'd gotten confused about appointments or dates. She'd drop by unannounced, something she'd never done before, and walk through the house making comments about dust on shelves or dishes in the sink, framing it as concern, but delivering it with an edge that felt like criticism. Dad, when's the last time you cleaned the bathroom? I don't know, a few days ago? It looks like longer than that. I'm worried you're not keeping up with basic hygiene and housekeeping. The house is clean enough. Is it? Because I'm seeing signs of neglect everywhere. She'd started showing up with Brandon, and they'd work in tandem. Brandon would ask about my finances. Had I been checking my investment accounts? Did I understand the statements my financial advisor sent? Was I confident I could manage the accounts myself, now that Margaret wasn't there to help? That last one had stung because Margaret had handled our finances for years. She'd been better with money than me, enjoyed tracking investments and balancing books. Since her passing, I'd been muddling through, trusting the financial advisor Margaret had worked with, not paying too much attention to the details. Maybe you should give us power of attorney, Ashley had suggested one evening. Just financial power of attorney, so Brandon and I can help manage things. You'd still have full control, but we could help with complicated decisions. I don't need help with decisions. Dad, you just said you don't really understand your investment accounts. I said I don't track them closely. That doesn't mean I'm incompetent. No one's saying you're incompetent. We're saying you're grieving and overwhelmed, and it would be easier if you had support. I'd refused. Something about giving Ashley and Brandon control over my finances felt wrong, though I couldn't explain why. They were my family. They supposedly wanted to help, but my gut said no. That's when the incidents got weirder. I'd started finding things missing or moved. Small things. my reading glasses, my wallet, the TV remote. They'd turn up eventually, usually in places I didn't remember putting them. I'd chalked it up to grief brain, to being distracted and forgetful while adjusting to life without Margaret. But then bigger things happened. I'd missed a dentist appointment I was certain I'd written in my calendar. The notation was gone when I checked. I'd shown up at my barber on the wrong day, swearing the appointment was Tuesday when apparently I'd scheduled Thursday. The barber showed me the appointment book, definitely Thursday in my handwriting, though I didn't remember writing it. Either I was losing my mind or someone was gaslighting me. I'd started to suspect the latter when I'd walked into my home office one afternoon and caught Ashley going through my filing cabinets. "What are you doing?" I'd asked. She jumped, startled. "Dad, I didn't hear you come in." I asked what you're doing. I was looking for Mom's passing certificate. I need a copy for some insurance paperwork. The end-of-life certificates are in the fireproof safe, not in the filing cabinets. What are you really doing? I told you, Ashley, those filing cabinets have financial records and personal documents. Why are you going through them? Because I'm worried about you. I'm worried you're not staying on top of things. I wanted to check whether bills are getting paid, whether paperwork is getting filed. Is that so wrong? Yes, it's invasive and inappropriate. These are my private documents. You're my father. I have a right to make sure you're okay. You have a right to visit and call and check in. You don't have a right to rifle through my personal files without permission. Well, maybe if you'd been more transparent about your situation, I wouldn't have to worry. My situation is fine. I'm managing fine. I wish everyone would stop treating me like I'm senile. Ashley had left angry, but I'd noticed she'd left a filing cabinet drawer partially open, the one containing our estate planning documents. Had she been looking at our will? At Margaret's life insurance policies? At beneficiary designations? The paranoia that had been building for months crystallized into something sharper. My daughter was planning something that required accessing my documents, building a case that I was declining mentally, pushing me toward giving her legal control over my finances. But I still couldn't imagine what specifically she was planning or why. Ashley was successful. She made excellent money as a corporate attorney. Brandon's family was wealthy. They didn't need my money. The house was valuable, sure, but surely she wasn't plotting to steal her own father's home. I'd started being more careful after that. I'd installed a lock on my home office door. I'd started documenting things, writing down appointments immediately, taking photos of my calendar, keeping receipts. If someone was trying to make me look incompetent, I was going to have evidence that I wasn't. That's the state I was in when Ashley called 6 weeks ago with the spa invitation. Dad, I feel like we've been distant lately. I want to fix that. Let me take you to this wellness spa I discovered. They do massages, facials, relaxation therapy. It'll be good for both of us. That's not really my thing, Ashley. I know, but humor me, please. I want to spend time with you. I feel like we've been fighting and I hate it. Let's just have a nice day together. The earnestness in her voice had gotten to me. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe Ashley really was just a worried daughter being clumsy about showing concern. Maybe I'd been reading malice into actions that were simply awkward expressions of love. Okay, I'd agreed. A spa day sounds nice. She'd scheduled it for 3 weeks out. Serenity Springs. Wellness Spa, she'd said. Very exclusive, very relaxing. She'd even offered to pick me up so I wouldn't have to drive. And that's how I'd ended up in her Mercedes that Tuesday morning, pulling into the parking lot with alarm bells going off that I couldn't yet explain. The spa building was modern glass and stone, nestled in a wooded area off a highway exit between Seattle and Bellevue. Expensive looking, exclusive. The parking lot had maybe 6 cars total. A small sign near the entrance read, Serenity Springs Wellness Spa, by appointment only. This place looks fancy, I said as we walked toward the entrance. It is. They focus on holistic wellness for mature clients. I thought it would be perfect for you. Mature clients. Another reminder that Ashley saw me as elderly, declining, in need of special care. The reception area was all earth tones and soft music, water features and plants. Behind the desk sat a woman in her 30s with dark hair pulled back and kind eyes. She looked up as we entered, and I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or concern. But it was gone so fast I thought I'd imagined it. Good morning, the receptionist said with a professional smile. You must be the Thatcher appointment. That's us, Ashley said brightly. My father Robert and I have the day package. Wonderful. I'll need you both to fill out some intake paperwork. Standard health history, liability waivers, that sort of thing. She handed us clipboards with thick packets of paper. I glanced at the first page. Standard enough, asking about medical conditions, medications, allergies. I started filling it out while Ashley did the same beside me. Then Ashley's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. Work call. Do you mind if I step outside, Dad? Go ahead. I'll just be a few minutes. You can finish the paperwork and I'll be right back. She walked out, phone to her ear, her voice carrying that professional attorney tone before the door even closed behind her. I continued filling out the form, flipping to the second page, then the third. The questions got more detailed. Have you experienced memory loss? Do you have trouble managing financial affairs? Do you require assistance with daily living activities? Have you been diagnosed with any cognitive disorders? My pen slowed. Why was a spa asking these questions? This wasn't standard wellness intake. This was psychological evaluation territory. I flipped ahead. Page 5 had a signature line at the bottom. I hereby consent to comprehensive wellness evaluation and agree to follow all treatment recommendations provided by Serenity Springs staff and affiliated medical professionals. Treatment recommendations? This wasn't a spa, or it wasn't just a spa. I looked up at the receptionist. She was watching me, and when our eyes met, she glanced toward the door Ashley had exited through, then back at me. She shook her head slightly, a warning. I glanced at the door. Ashley was still outside, pacing as she talked on her phone. I looked back at the receptionist. She leaned forward and said quietly, "Don't sign anything." What? Don't sign anything, she repeated, barely above a whisper. Especially not page 5. And when your daughter comes back, you need to leave. I don't understand. There's no time to explain. But this isn't what you think it is. You're in danger. There's a back exit through the hallway past the bathrooms. Go now, while she's still outside. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen this happen before and it's wrong. Go. Now. Before she comes back. I stared at her, mind racing. Every instinct screamed that something was very wrong. The questions on the intake form. Ashley bringing me here under the guise of a relaxing day. The receptionist's warning. I stood up, leaving the clipboard on the chair. Thank you, I said. Go, she urged, quickly. I walked fast toward the hallway she'd indicated, past restrooms and therapy rooms, toward a door marked emergency exit. I pushed through it into bright September sunshine and found myself in a small parking lot behind the building. My heart was hammering. I pulled out my phone and called an Uber. The driver was 8 minutes away. I stood behind a dumpster, hidden from view of the building, watching the entrance. After 4 minutes, I saw Ashley storm out of the front door, looking around wildly. She pulled out her phone, and seconds later, my phone buzzed with her call. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Dad, where are you? The receptionist said you left. What's going on? Call me back. The Uber arrived. I climbed in and gave my home address. As we pulled away, I saw Ashley standing in the parking lot, still on her phone, her face a mask of fury. Whatever had been about to happen at that spa, I'd just escaped it. Now I needed to figure out what my daughter had been planning. I got home in 20 minutes, paid the Uber driver, and locked myself inside my house. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. Ashley had called 6 more times and left 3 increasingly frantic voicemails. Dad, I don't know what happened, but please call me back. Are you okay? Dad, this isn't funny. I'm worried sick. Where did you go? Dad, you can't just disappear like this. I'm calling the police if I don't hear from you in 10 minutes. Empty threats. She wasn't calling the police. She couldn't explain to police what we'd been doing at that spa without revealing whatever scheme she'd been running. I texted her. I'm fine. Went home. Need space. We'll call you later. She called immediately. I declined it. She texted, We need to talk. Now. I turned off my phone. I needed to think. The receptionist's warning. The intake forms asking about cognitive decline and financial management. The consent form to treatment recommendations. Ashley's convenient phone call pulling her away right when I was supposed to sign documents. It clicked together with sickening clarity. Ashley hadn't brought me to a spa for relaxation. She'd brought me there to have me evaluated, probably by doctors she'd already primed with information about my supposed decline. The intake forms would document my symptoms. The signed consent would give them permission to recommend treatment, probably including declaring me incompetent to manage my own affairs. Then Ashley would swoop in with a petition for guardianship or conservatorship, armed with medical evaluations from qualified professionals, showing I needed someone to manage my life and finances. It was elegant, diabolical, and almost legal. The receptionist had saved me. But why? Who was she? Had she seen this before? I filed those questions away and focused on the immediate problem. I'd just escaped Ashley's trap, but she'd try again. Or she'd escalate. I needed leverage. I needed information, Margaret's files. The thought came suddenly. Ashley had been rifling through my filing cabinets looking for something. What if she'd already been through Margaret's files? What if there was something in there that explained what was happening? I went to my home office and unlocked the door. The filing cabinets were untouched since I'd installed the lock, but Margaret had kept her own files too, in the master bedroom, in a beautiful wooden cabinet her father had made for her. I'd barely looked at them since her passing. Too painful. Too much of her personality and handwriting and careful organization in those files. But if there was evidence explaining Ashley's behavior, it might be there. I went upstairs to the master bedroom. The wooden cabinet sat in the corner, still smelling faintly of the lavender sachets Margaret had kept in every drawer. I opened the top drawer. Files organized by category: household, medical, financial, personal. I pulled out the financial folder first. Bank statements, investment records, retirement account summaries. Everything looked normal. I checked the dates. Margaret had kept meticulous records right up until 2 months before she died, when the cancer had made it too difficult to manage paperwork. I opened the medical folder. Records from her cancer treatment, insurance claims, hospital bills. My chest tightened looking at the progression, diagnosis, treatment plans, the steady march toward hospice care. Then I found something odd. A folder labeled Ashley in Margaret's handwriting, tucked in the back of the medical files. I pulled it out. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them. I read the first one, dated 3 years ago. Mom, I need to borrow $50,000. Brandon's investment firm ran into some regulatory issues, and we need liquid cash to cover the fees. I'll pay you back within 6 months. Margaret's response, Ashley, that's a lot of money. What kind of regulatory issues? Is Brandon's firm in trouble? Ashley's reply, it's complicated. SEC stuff. Not a big deal, but we need cash now. Can you help or not? Another email, 6 months later. Mom, I need another $30,000. The SEC thing got more complicated. Please don't tell Dad. He'll just worry and ask a million questions. More emails, more requests. $20,000 here. $40,000 there. Always with urgency. Always with instructions not to tell me. Over 3 years, the requests totaled close to $300,000. Margaret had given her all of it. Transferred money from her personal accounts, from the inheritance she'd received when her parents died, from savings she'd kept separate from our joint finances. The last email was dated 4 months before Margaret's passing. Mom, I need $75,000. This is urgent. Brandon's firm is going under. If we don't cover some debts, we could lose everything. Please, I'm desperate. Margaret's response. Ashley, I've given you nearly $300,000 over 3 years. I don't have $75,000 to give. I'm dying. I need that money for medical expenses and to make sure your father is taken care of after I'm gone. Ashley's reply, you're being selfish. I'm your daughter. Dad will be fine. He has retirement accounts. I need this money now. Margaret, no, I'm sorry, but no. You need to figure this out yourself. Ashley's final email in the chain, brutal in its cruelty. Fine, don't help me, but don't expect me to be there for you when you're dying. I can't handle watching you suffer anyway. I sat on the bedroom floor holding those printed emails, feeling like someone had punched me in the chest. My daughter had extorted nearly $300,000 from her dying mother, then abandoned her when Margaret finally said no. That's why Ashley had barely visited during Margaret's illness. It wasn't that she couldn't handle seeing her mother suffer. It was punishment for refusing to hand over more money. But there was more. Underneath the emails was a legal document. I recognized it immediately, a new will drafted by Margaret, dated 2 months before she died. I read it with growing understanding. Margaret had changed our estate plan. The original will left everything split between Ashley and me. Ashley would inherit the house when we both died, plus half of all other assets. The new will left everything to me during my lifetime, with a trust established for Ashley that she could only access after my passing, with conditions. The conditions were specific. Ashley could inherit only if she remained in contact with me, visited at least quarterly, and provided care and support as needed. If she failed those conditions, the trust would instead go to charity. Margaret had seen what I'd been too blind to see. Ashley was only interested in money, so Margaret had structured the inheritance to force Ashley to maintain a relationship with me or lose everything. But there was a catch. The new will had been drafted but not executed. Margaret had died before signing it, which meant the old will was still valid, the one that left Ashley everything jointly with me, with no conditions. Except Ashley didn't know that. The pieces fell into place. Ashley thought Margaret's new will had been executed. She thought her inheritance was conditional on maintaining a relationship with me and providing care, but she didn't want to do that. Didn't want to actually be a daughter, actually spend time with me, actually care. So she'd hatched a plan. If she could have me declared incompetent, she could become my guardian or conservator. She'd control my finances, and when I eventually died, she'd inherit everything without having to meet Margaret's conditions because as my guardian, she'd technically have been providing care. It was brilliant in its sociopathy. But it only worked if the new will had actually been signed, and it hadn't, which meant I held all the cards, and Ashley didn't know it. I sat on that bedroom floor surrounded by Margaret's files, feeling grief and rage war inside me. Grief that the daughter I'd raised had become this person. Rage at what she'd done to Margaret, what she'd tried to do to me. Margaret had seen the truth and tried to protect me. Now I needed to finish what she'd started. I needed to destroy Ashley's plans and make her pay for everything. I spent the rest of that day documenting everything. I photographed every email in Margaret's files, scanned the unsigned will, organized the evidence chronologically. Then I started researching. Conservatorship law in Washington state, elder abuse statutes, financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. The law was on my side if I could prove Ashley's intent. What she'd tried to do at the spa, bringing me there under false pretenses to be evaluated for competency, could constitute attempted exploitation. The $300,000 she'd extorted from Margaret could be pursued as financial elder abuse, even posthumously. But I needed more than Margaret's files. I needed current evidence. I needed Ashley to reveal her hand. My phone was still off. I'd left it that way all day, letting Ashley's calls go into the void. Now I turned it back on. 23 missed calls, 11 voicemails, 15 texts escalating from worried to angry to threatening. The last text read, "Dad, if I don't hear from you by 6 p.m., I'm coming to the house with police for a wellness check. You're clearly not in your right mind." It was 5:45 p.m. I texted back, "Come over, we need to talk." She arrived in 15 minutes, which meant she'd been waiting nearby. Brandon was with her. They both looked agitated as I opened the door. "Dad, what the hell?" Ashley pushed past me into the house. "You can't just disappear like that. We were worried sick." "Were you?" "Yes. The receptionist said you ran out. She said you seemed confused and disoriented." "Interesting. That's not what she told me." "What did she tell you?" "She told me not to sign anything. She told me to leave. She warned me I was in danger." Ashley's face went carefully blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" "Ashley, what was that place really? Because those intake forms weren't for a spa. They were competency evaluations." "Dad, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Let me guess. You'd already talked to the doctors there, told them your father was showing signs of cognitive decline, primed them to find exactly what you wanted them to find, and I was supposed to sign consent forms giving them permission to evaluate me and make treatment recommendations. Recommendations that would include declaring me incompetent so you could petition for guardianship." "That's insane." "Is it? Then explain the forms. Explain the questions about memory loss and financial management. Explain why a wellness spa needs me to consent to treatment recommendations from affiliated medical professionals." Brandon spoke up. "Robert, Ashley is concerned about you. You've been declining since Margaret died. Missing appointments, neglecting the house, seeming confused. She's trying to help. By tricking me into signing documents that would give her control of my life. By getting you evaluated by professionals who can determine if you need help," Ashley said. Her voice had shifted from defensive to cold. "And frankly, your behavior today proves you do need help. A rational person doesn't run away from a spa appointment because of paranoid delusions." "Paranoid delusions? Ashley, I know about the money." She went very still. "What money?" "The $300,000 you extorted from your mother over 3 years. The money you demanded when she was dying of cancer. I found her files. I have the emails. That's private. That's evidence. Evidence that you financially exploited your dying mother. Evidence that you abandoned her when she finally said no. Evidence that you're willing to manipulate and steal from your own family." "I didn't steal anything. Mom gave me that money willingly." "Did she?" "Because the emails suggest you coerced her, told her you'd lose everything if she didn't help, pressured her repeatedly, then cut her off when she refused to give more. That's financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, Ashley. That's potentially criminal." Brandon stepped forward. "Robert, you need to be very careful about what you're accusing Ashley of. She's a lawyer. Defamation suits are expensive." "Are they?" "You'd know about expensive legal problems, wouldn't you, Brandon? Since your investment firm had all those SEC issues Ashley mentioned in her emails to Margaret. How did those turn out? Did the firm go under like Ashley said it would? Or did the $300,000 from my dying wife save it?" Brandon's face flushed. "My firm's financial situation is none of your business. It is when you're using stolen money to prop it up. and it is when you're conspiring with my daughter to have me declared incompetent so you can steal from me next. We're trying to help you, Ashley shouted. You're old and alone and declining. You need someone to take care of you. I'm 67 and in perfect health. I don't need caretakers. I need my daughter to stop treating me like an ATM to raid. You think this is about money? You narcissistic old man. This is about protecting you from yourself. Then why did you go through my files looking for estate planning documents? Why did you ask me to give you financial power of attorney? Why did you bring me to a fake spa to be evaluated for competency? All of those things are about control and money, Ashley, not love, not protection. She was breathing hard now, her lawyer composure cracking. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I also found something else in Margaret's files. A new will she'd drafted, one that left your inheritance in a trust with conditions requiring you to actually be a daughter to me. She saw what you were before I did. She tried to protect me from you. Fear flickered across Ashley's face. Show me. Why? So you can destroy it. Show me the will, Dad. It's safely stored where you can't get to it. Was it executed? Did Mom sign it? I smiled. That's the question, isn't it? If it wasn't executed, it's not valid. The old will stands. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on whether Margaret's intent is clear enough that a court would honor her wishes even without a formal execution. That's not how wills work. But you're not sure, are you? You're a corporate attorney, not an estate lawyer. You don't know for certain what a court would do with a clearly drafted will that shows intent but lacks signature. So you're scared. Scared that your inheritance is conditional after all. Scared that you've wasted a year trying to gain control of my assets when you can't access them anyway unless you actually fulfill Margaret's conditions. You're bluffing. Am I? Ashley and Brandon exchanged looks. Then Ashley said, Fine. You want to play games? Let's play. I'll petition for guardianship based on your behavior today. I'll argue you're having paranoid delusions, that you fled a medical appointment because of irrational fears, that you're making wild accusations against your own family. I'll bring witnesses. The spa staff will testify you seemed confused. Your doctor will testify about missed appointments. My doctor who confirmed I never missed any appointments? Who confirmed her office never called you? That doctor? I'll find doctors who'll say what I need them to say. Will you? Because I've recorded this entire conversation. I pulled out my phone and showed her the voice memo app recording. And now I have you admitting you plan to lie to a court, fabricate evidence, and bring false witness testimony. That's perjury, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. All felonies. All career-ending for a lawyer. Ashley lunged for my phone. I'd expected it. I stepped back and put the phone behind me. The recording is already backed up to cloud storage. Breaking my phone won't help you. You son of a bitch. Interesting thing to call your father. Especially since your mother was a good woman who deserved better than you. You think you're better than me? You're a pathetic old man living in the past, clinging to a house you can't maintain and a life that's already over. Mom's gone. Your career is over. You have nothing and no one. At least I have a life. You have a life built on money you stole from your dying mother. That's not much of a life, Ashley. I'm done with this. Come on, Brandon. Let's go. Ashley, wait, Brandon said quietly. He has evidence. He has recordings. If he takes this to the authorities, he won't. He's too weak, too sentimental. He won't destroy his own daughter. I looked at the woman my daughter had become. Cruel, calculating, willing to destroy me for money she didn't even need, and felt something final click into place. You're wrong, I said. I absolutely will. They left. I locked the door behind them and stood in my silent house, trembling with adrenaline and grief and grim determination. Tomorrow, I'd take this evidence to the authorities, to an attorney, to anyone who could help me make sure Ashley paid for what she'd done. But tonight, I'd grieve. Grieve for the daughter I'd lost long before I'd realized she was gone. Grieve for Margaret, who'd seen the truth and died before she could protect me from it. Grieve for the family we'd been before money and greed destroyed it. Tomorrow, war. Tonight, grief. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my home office reviewing evidence, organizing files, preparing for what came next. By dawn, I'd built a comprehensive case documenting Ashley's exploitation of Margaret, her attempted scheme to have me declared incompetent, and her threats from the previous evening. At 8 a.m., I called Patricia Walsh, my doctor. Patricia, I need you to write a letter documenting my cognitive health. I need it to state clearly that I have no memory issues, no signs of dementia or incompetence, and that I'm fully capable of managing my own affairs. What's going on, Robert? My daughter tried to have me declared incompetent so she could gain control of my finances. I need documentation proving I'm fine. There was a long pause. Jesus. Okay. Come in this afternoon. I'll do a full cognitive assessment and write you the most detailed letter I've ever written. Next, I called Dennis Lawson, an attorney I knew from my engineering days. Dennis specialized in elder law and estate litigation. I explained the situation, sent him the evidence, and made an appointment for that afternoon after my doctor's visit. Then I called the Serenity Springs Wellness Spa. The same receptionist answered. This is Robert Thatcher. You warned me yesterday. I need to know why. Mr. Thatcher. Her voice was quiet, professional. I'm glad you got out. Why did you warn me? What is that place really? It's a wellness spa, but it also contracts with certain attorneys and financial planners who need medical documentation for their clients. Clients who might contest wills or trust arrangements. Clients whose family members need them declared incompetent. That's fraud. It's borderline. The evaluations are real. The doctors are licensed. But the outcomes are predetermined. Your daughter had already been here. She'd met with the medical director. She'd outlined your symptoms. You were going to be evaluated and found incompetent, regardless of your actual condition. Why did you warn me? Because I've seen this 3 times now in 6 months. Adult children bringing elderly parents for spa days that are really competency traps. It makes me sick. This isn't what I signed up for when I took this job. Would you be willing to testify to that? If it helps you, yes. I'm already looking for other work anyway. This place gives me the creeps. Thank you. My attorney will be in touch. I hung up feeling the case strengthen. A whistleblower from the spa, medical documentation of my competence, evidence of Ashley's financial exploitation of Margaret, recordings of her threats and admission that she'd lied to courts. This was winnable. That afternoon, Dr. Walsh put me through every cognitive test available. Memory, reasoning, problem-solving, orientation. I passed everything perfectly, scoring better than average for my age group. Robert, you're sharp as a tack, she said while writing the letter. I'm documenting everything here. Your physical health, your cognitive function, the fact that you manage your own household, your finances, your health care. Anyone who claims you're incompetent is either lying or delusional. My daughter is a little of both. I'm sorry. I've seen this before. Adult children who see elderly parents as obstacles to inheritance rather than people. It's disgusting. I took the letter and went straight to Dennis Lawson's office. He'd already reviewed the evidence I'd sent. His face was grim. Robert, this is one of the worst cases of elder abuse I've seen. Not in terms of physical harm, but in terms of calculated predation. Your daughter is essentially trying to legally kidnap you. Can we stop her? Absolutely. More than that, we can destroy her. She's committed multiple crimes. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult regarding Margaret. Attempted fraud in trying to have you declared incompetent. Conspiracy to commit perjury. If I take this to the prosecutor, she could face serious charges. Will they prosecute? With this evidence? Yes, especially with the spa receptionist willing to testify about the scam operation. This isn't just about your case. This is about a broader conspiracy to defraud elderly clients. The AG's office will love it. What about Margaret's will? The unsigned one? Dennis read through it carefully. This is tough. Washington requires proper execution for wills, signature, witnesses, the works. Intent alone isn't usually enough. However, there are exceptions for holographic wills. And there's case law around substantial compliance when intent is crystal clear. We could argue this. What are the chances? 50-50 maybe. But here's the thing. Whether we win that argument or not, Ashley thinks we can win it. That's leverage. We can use her uncertainty to extract concessions. What kind of concessions? You want revenge or resolution? I want both. Dennis smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then let's give you both. The next week moved fast. Dennis filed multiple actions simultaneously. A restraining order against Ashley preventing her from contacting me or coming near my property. A petition to the court requesting investigation into elder abuse, and a formal complaint to the State Bar Association alleging Ashley had violated attorney ethics rules by conspiring to commit fraud. We also sent the evidence to the prosecutor's office with a detailed memo outlining the crimes. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Hale, who'd built her career on elder abuse cases, took the case immediately. This is egregious, she said in our meeting. I'm filing charges against your daughter and launching an investigation into Serenity Springs Wellness Spa. If they're running a competency fraud operation, we're shutting them down. Ashley's world started collapsing within days. The Bar Association opened an investigation. Her law firm, learning about the allegations, put her on administrative leave. Brandon's investment firm, already shaky, started bleeding clients who didn't want to be associated with a financial advisor whose wife was under investigation for elder abuse. Ashley hired a criminal defense attorney, some hotshot from a big firm who charged $500 an hour. She burned through her savings, paying legal fees. Then Brandon's firm formally failed, driven under by the SEC investigation that had never really been resolved despite the $300,000 from Margaret. 2 months after I'd escaped the spa, Ashley called me from an unknown number. I answered, recording as always. Dad. Her voice was different, smaller, scared. Dad, please, you have to drop the charges. Why would I do that? Because I'm your daughter. Because Mom wouldn't want this. Because you're destroying my life. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. I'll lose my law license. I'll go to prison. Brandon and I will lose everything. You already lost everything when you decided to exploit your dying mother and plot against your father. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I made mistakes. I got desperate. Brandon's firm was failing and we needed money and I panicked, but I never wanted to hurt you. Ashley, you tried to have me declared incompetent so you could control my money. That's not panic. That's calculated predation. I was trying to protect you. Stop lying. Even now, you're lying. You can't help yourself. What do you want from me? I want you to plead guilty to all charges. I want you to accept responsibility publicly. I want you to agree to a settlement that includes repaying the $300,000 you took from Margaret plus interest, and I want you to sign a document relinquishing all claims to any inheritance from me when I die. That's everything. You're taking everything from me. You tried to take everything from me first. The difference is I succeeded. I'll fight this. My attorney says we can win. Your attorney is lying to you to keep billing hours. You have no defense, Ashley. I have emails, recordings, witness testimony, medical documentation. You are going to lose. The only question is how much you lose. Take the plea deal the prosecutor offers, agree to my settlement terms, or go to trial and spend 5 years in prison while paying millions in legal fees. You're a monster. No, I'm a father who finally stopped being blind to what his daughter became. Take the deal, Ashley. It's the best you're going to get. She took the deal. 3 weeks later, Ashley pleaded guilty to financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult and attempted fraud. The prosecutor recommended probation and restitution instead of prison time because Ashley had no prior record and the exploitation hadn't succeeded in my case. The judge agreed but imposed harsh conditions: 5 years probation, community service, mandatory counseling, and a permanent notation on her legal record that would make it nearly impossible to practice law again. The civil settlement was even more devastating. Ashley agreed to repay the $300,000 plus interest, nearly $400,000 total. She signed away all inheritance rights. She agreed to a permanent no-contact order, and she agreed to sell her house to pay the restitution. Brandon divorced her 3 months later. His firm's failure was blamed on her scandal, and his family disowned them both. Ashley ended up in a small apartment in Tacoma, working as a paralegal for a low-budget criminal defense firm, her dreams of legal prestige destroyed by her own greed. Serenity Springs Wellness Spa was shut down by the state. The medical director lost his license. 2 other families came forward with similar stories of attempted competency fraud, and the civil lawsuits bankrupted everyone involved. The spa receptionist who'd warned me, her name was Karen Ellis, found a new job at a legitimate medical practice. I sent her flowers and a thank you note. She'd saved me from a nightmare, and I never forgot that. 6 months after Ashley's guilty plea, I sat in my home office organizing Margaret's files one last time. I'd discovered something during the investigation that I hadn't shared with Ashley or the attorneys. Margaret's new will, the unsigned one, included a codicil. The codicil stated that if Ashley proved herself unworthy through actions demonstrating greed, exploitation, or abuse toward either Margaret or me, the trust would be dissolved and all inheritance would go to charity instead. Margaret had predicted exactly what happened. She'd known Ashley's nature, and she'd protected me from beyond the grave by creating terms that would strip Ashley of inheritance if she revealed her true character. The will wouldn't need to be probated to enforce that codicil. I could simply choose to honor Margaret's intent by leaving everything to charity myself. And that's exactly what I planned to do. I drafted a new will with Dennis's help. Everything I owned would be divided among charities Margaret and I had supported over the years: cancer research, elder advocacy organizations, homeless shelters. Ashley would get nothing. And when I died, she'd learn that her greed had cost her everything, but I wouldn't be dying anytime soon. Dr. Walsh said I was in excellent health for my age, I could easily live another 20 years, and I was going to live those years well, traveling to places Margaret and I had dreamed of visiting, volunteering, building relationships with people who valued me. A year after the spa incident, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much space for one person. I bought a condo in downtown Seattle with water views and modern amenities, started taking art classes, joined a hiking group, went on a cruise to Alaska. I was 68 years old and finally living the retirement Margaret and I had planned, just without Margaret beside me. I thought about Ashley sometimes, wondered if she'd learned anything from her fall, wondered if she regretted her choices or just regretted getting caught, wondered if she hated me for destroying her life or understood I'd simply revealed the destruction she'd brought on herself. I didn't reach out. The no-contact order made it illegal, but even without that, I had nothing to say to her. She'd stopped being my daughter the moment she'd tried to have me declared incompetent. That betrayal had severed our relationship more completely than any legal document could. 2 years after the spa, I met someone. Her name was Elizabeth, a widow my age who'd lost her husband to Alzheimer's 3 years earlier. We met at an art class, bonded over shared grief and the struggle of rebuilding life after losing a spouse. We took things slowly, coffee, then dinner, then weekend trips. "Do you have children?" she asked one evening over dinner. "I had a daughter. We're not in contact anymore." "I'm sorry. That must be painful." It was. Now it's just reality. She made choices. I made choices. We can't be in each other's lives. "My son and I aren't close either," Elizabeth admitted. "He's angry that I sold the house where he grew up after his father died. Angry that I'm moving Ian instead of preserving his father's memory the way he thinks I should. We talk maybe twice a year." Children can be surprisingly selfish sometimes. They can, but we can't live for them. We have to live for ourselves. She was right. For decades I'd defined myself as a husband and father. Now I was just Robert, not Robert the engineer, or Robert the father, or Robert whose wife died. Just Robert, figuring out who that was at 68 years old. Elizabeth and I moved in together after a year. We didn't marry, neither of us felt the need for legal entanglement again, but we built a life together. Travel, art, good food, friends. It was comfortable and honest and free from the drama that had consumed my last years with Ashley. 3 years after the spa incident, I got a letter from Ashley. It came to Dennis's office since she couldn't contact me directly. Dennis called to ask if I wanted to see it. "What does it say?" It's an apology, a long one. She says she's been in therapy, working on understanding why she did what she did. She says she's taking responsibility and doesn't expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know she understands the harm she caused. Do you believe her? I don't know her well enough to judge, but it reads sincere. Anything in there about money? About the will? About wanting back into my life? No. She specifically says she doesn't want anything from you, just wanted you to know she's sorry. Then she's learned something. Good for her, but I'm not responding. You sure? I'm sure. Maybe she has changed. Maybe she's genuinely remorseful. But that doesn't undo what she did. Doesn't give me back the year I spent in fear. Doesn't bring Margaret back to see her daughter become a better person. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Dennis was quiet. Then, fair enough. I'll file this with your records in case it's relevant someday. I hung up and returned to the life I'd built. Elizabeth and I were planning a trip to Italy in the spring. I was taking a watercolor painting class. I'd started volunteering at an elder law clinic, helping other seniors navigate family exploitation issues. The revenge I'd taken on Ashley wasn't the dramatic confrontation people imagine. It was quieter than that, more thorough. I'd dismantled her life systematically, her career, her reputation, her finances, her inheritance. I'd made sure everyone knew what she'd done. I'd ensured she'd live with the consequences of her greed for the rest of her life. But the real revenge was simpler. I'd moved on, built a good life without her, found happiness she couldn't touch or destroy, lived well while she lived with regret. That was enough. 4 years after the spa, on a Tuesday afternoon in September, exactly 4 years to the day, I sat in my condo looking out at Elliott Bay while Elizabeth painted beside me. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Thatcher?" A woman's voice I didn't recognize. "Yes? This is Karen Ellis from the spa. I hope it's okay I'm calling. I got your number from court records." "Karen, of course. How are you?" "I'm good. Really good, actually. I wanted to thank you. After everything that happened, after the spa shut down, I was interviewed by the state medical board. They asked about the fraud operation. My testimony helped shut down 2 other similar operations in Washington. I ended up being hired by the Attorney General's office as a consultant on medical fraud cases. I'm helping investigate these scams across the state." "That's wonderful." "It is. And it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't pursued your case. If you just accepted what your daughter tried to do. You saved other people from what almost happened to you. I just wanted justice. You got justice, but you also created change. There are new regulations now about wellness centers offering medical evaluations. New training for recognizing elder abuse. You made things better. After we hung up, I sat thinking about that. I'd spent 4 years focused on my own revenge, my own healing. I hadn't thought much about broader impact, but Karen was right. By fighting back, by refusing to be a victim, I'd helped others avoid the same fate. That evening, Elizabeth and I talked about it over dinner. You saved people, she said. That's worth celebrating. I just didn't want Ashley to win. That's how most good things start. Someone refusing to accept something wrong. You did that. I destroyed my daughter's life. No, she destroyed her own life. You just made sure the destruction was complete instead of letting her destroy you too. That night, I thought about Margaret. What would she think of how things had turned out? Would she be proud I'd fought back? Sad that Ashley had fallen so far? Angry at me for not forgiving? I thought she'd be proud. Margaret had been gentle, but she'd also been fierce when it came to protecting people she loved. She'd drafted that will knowing Ashley's nature. She'd tried to protect me from beyond the grave. She'd have wanted me to fight. 5 years after the spa incident, I turned 73. Elizabeth threw me a party. Friends from hiking groups, art classes, volunteer work. Dennis came with his wife. Dr. Walsh came. Even Karen Ellis came, bringing her new fiancé. It was a good party. A happy party. The party of a man who'd survived betrayal and built something better from the ashes. No one mentioned Ashley. She was a ghost, a cautionary tale, a person who'd once been part of my life but wasn't anymore. I'd won. Not by destroying her, though I had done that. I'd won by surviving, thriving, refusing to be the victim she'd tried to make me. That was the revenge that mattered. That was the victory that lasted. And standing in my condo surrounded by people who actually cared about me, who valued me for myself rather than my money, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete peace. Ashley had tried to steal my life. Instead, I'd stolen it back and made it better than it had ever been. That was enough. That was everything.